The story kicks off with a mechanic named Johnny, who spends his days working hard at a small car repair shop. Then one day, his girlfriend Beth shows up and says the exact words Johnny had been afraid of hearing. "I want to break up with you." She wanted someone who could give her a real future, a stable life, someone to grow old with. And Johnny had always run away from that kind of talk. The truth was, Johnny was absolutely terrified of getting married. He grew up without a father, and always believed his dad had chosen to leave him and his mom behind. That fear had buried itself deep inside him, and was stopping him from building a family of his own. But Beth was tired of waiting, so she put the entire blame on Johnny. Deep down though, she was leaving because she felt Johnny was going nowhere in life, that he would always be broke. Johnny was heartbroken when Beth left, but he made up his mind to simply look after his mom and be happy with his quiet, simple life. That night, Johnny went to the bar, where he usually hung out with his friends. He got up on stage and sang his heart out, like a man who had truly lost everything. Suddenly, a woman walked into the bar. Her eyes went straight to Johnny. After the song ended, she walked over and introduced herself as Prudence. She explained that she works for the Duke of Glasswick in England. Then she handed Johnny a plane ticket and told him to go meet the Duke. And if that wasn't enough of a shock, she pulled out an old birth record showing that Johnny is the Duke's real son. Johnny stood there with his mouth open. He pushed the paper right back at her. He said he had no desire whatsoever to meet a man who walked out on his family 30 years ago. The very next morning, Johnny went straight to his mom, whose name is Doy, and demanded to know the truth. When Doy saw that he already knew too much, she knew she had no choice, so she finally told him the whole story. Back when Doy and William, the Duke of Glasswick, were young, they met and fell deeply in love. But when William's powerful family said no to their relationship, the two ran off together. William promised Doy he would give up everything just to be with her, but the pressure from his family was too strong, and he was eventually pulled back. Broken, Doy called off the wedding. Then a short time later, she found out she was pregnant. She tried getting in touch with William, sending letter after letter, but never heard back. Thinking William had moved on and forgotten about her, she chose to raise her son on her own. Now she told Johnny to go meet his father, to finally get to know the man he never had. With his mom's words in his heart, Johnny made his way to the huge, beautiful palace that the Duke of Glasswick called home. Prudence met him at the door and showed him around the grand rooms. A little while later, she brought him to William's private study and told him to wait. She also told him very clearly, "Do not touch anything." But the second she left, Johnny grabbed an old sword from the wall and started playing with it. Shortly after, William walked in. The father and son looked shockingly alike. Even the way they spoke, the way they moved, almost the same. When Johnny realized this was the father he had never met, the room got very tense. William thought Johnny had come asking for money, not knowing that Prudence was the one who had brought him there. That hit Johnny hard. He told William he had only come to meet the father who had been missing from his life for decades. But seeing how cold and distant William was, even after finally meeting his own son, Johnny felt deeply let down and angry. He turned to leave. Before walking out, Johnny said something about Doy. "My mom wanted to be a singer. She probably told you that. But she couldn't chase that dream because she had to raise me. She had to work regular jobs just to keep us going." Johnny walked out, but Prudence stopped him. She reminded him that he is William's only son, the one meant to one day become the Duke of Glasswick. Johnny just said, "I do not want to be near that man." Prudence asked where he was even going to go. Johnny shrugged. "I'll stay at some hotel." On his way out, he spotted an old dusty car sitting in the garage. He liked it right away, and wrote a little note on the dusty window telling someone to clean it. He headed to a nearby bar, where he fixed a broken music box for the owner. It wasn't long before Prudence showed up there too. She told him William wanted him to stay at the palace for one full week. Johnny said no, so Prudence offered him a deal. "Let's play darts. If I win, you come back and stay. If you win, you go back to America, and I'll do whatever you ask." Johnny agreed. Sure, he would win easily, but Prudence was amazing at darts. She won without even trying hard. It turned out she had played at a high level before. Johnny lost and kept his word. He went back to the palace. After showing him to his room, Prudence sat down and started looking through Johnny's social media. A maid named Annie walked in and caught her smiling at a photo of Johnny and his mom. Annie teased her straight away. "Do you like him or something?" Prudence brushed it off quickly. "No, it's not like that at all." The next morning, Prudence found Johnny in his room fixing an old camera that had stopped working years ago. Later, she took him on a bike ride across William's land. She explained that William owns about 42,000 acres, mostly used for farming, along with a private church and a burial ground for the royal family on the property. She also shared that William's father had spent all the family's money and left behind a huge pile of debt. Prudence then brought Johnny to meet an older farmer named Finch. Johnny's eyes went straight to a broken grinding machine that had been sitting there doing nothing for about 10 years. When he asked about the pile of beets nearby, Finch explained they didn't make much money these days. He also told Johnny something that stuck with him. "Your father, William, is a good man. He never once asked the farmers for rent. On the way back to the palace, Prudence introduced Johnny to his cousin Alistair. If William had no child, Alistair was next in line to take over as Duke. Walking through the fields, Prudence said quietly, "You need to seriously think about becoming the Duke. I do not want Alistair on that throne." Then she shared her own story. Her parents had worked for William's family for years, which is how she ended up growing up inside the palace. When she was just 8 years old, her parents died in an accident. William took her in and raised her like his own daughter. He paid for the best schools. He let her follow her own path. Because of all that, Prudence felt a deep and lasting love for William. She wanted the next Duke to be someone who truly deserved it, someone like Johnny. Before long, important guests began arriving at the palace, including Alistair and his mother. Both of them looked for every chance to make Johnny feel small, sure that a regular guy from America would have no idea how to act around royalty. Even during horse riding, Alistair tried to embarrass him, totally sure Johnny had never been on a horse. But Johnny rode with ease and left everyone shocked. And when Alistair almost fell off, it was Johnny who caught him. Later, Johnny showed up in the kitchen making fresh beet juice and passing it around to the staff. Annie said she had always stayed away from beets because of the bitter taste. Then Prudence walked in, told everyone to get back to work, and tried the juice herself. She loved it. That evening, Johnny dressed up for a big dinner at the palace. When he saw Prudence in a beautiful dress, he couldn't take his eyes off her. During dinner, the first dish left Johnny confused, a strange-looking fish that took away his appetite completely. Alistair jumped on it straight away, making fun of him in front of everyone. But Johnny didn't react. He made a joke that had the whole table laughing, and it was clear to everyone that he was not going to be put down. For every mean comment Alistair made, Johnny had a sharper and funnier reply. At the end of dinner, Alistair stood up and proudly told the room he was looking forward to becoming the next Duke. But right then, Johnny stood up too, and shocked everyone. "Not you. I'm gonna be the next Duke. I'm taking over my father's place." The whole room changed in an instant. Prudence lit up with joy. William looked happier than he had in years. Then William stood up and told everyone in the room that Johnny is his son, and that Johnny will be the next Duke of Glasswick. Alistair and his mother were furious. They pulled William aside privately, but William held his ground. "Johnny is my real son. If he wants to be the Duke, that is his right." That night, Johnny and Prudence went to a bar to celebrate with their friends. Later, unable to sleep, Johnny went down to the garage and started working on the old car. A little while later, William appeared. He asked Johnny why he wanted to be Duke, and admitted that when he first took on the role himself, he had no idea what he was doing. The two of them worked side by side on the car, and slowly began to understand each other a little better. The next day, Prudence started teaching Johnny to dance. They were getting ready for an upcoming royal event where guests from England's most important families would be attending. During the lesson, Annie walked in and thanked Johnny and Prudence for also inviting her boyfriend to the event. Soon after, Prudence found out that Johnny had invited Finch and the farmers from the land too. That small thing made her emotional, knowing how little time Johnny had spent there, yet he already cared about everyone on the property. During the dance practice, the mood between them shifted. Johnny and Prudence moved closer together, and it looked like they were about to kiss. When Annie and some of the staff walked in, both of them pulled back and said nothing. Later, back in the garage, William joined Johnny again. While they worked on the engine, William finally spoke honestly. He told Johnny he never got any of Doy's letters, that he had written to her many times but never heard back. He had eventually thought she had moved on. Johnny said quietly, "Mom never got your letters either." They stared at each other and the truth hit them both at the same time. Someone had gone out of their way to keep them apart all those years. Johnny told William to try starting the engine. William turned the key and the old car came roaring back to life. In that moment, both their faces broke into the biggest smiles, and they laughed together like two people who had known each other forever. Meanwhile, Alistair had slipped into William's study and found Johnny's birth record. He stared at it, and a cold smile spread across his face. The next day, Johnny took William for a drive in that very same car, clean and shining. It looked brand new. Prudence and the house manager watched from a distance, happy to see the father and son together. Then they went to the farm, where Johnny had already fixed the grinding machine that had been broken for years. Finch and the other farmers were now using it to make fresh juice, and it was bringing in good money. William was overjoyed, and straight away invited everyone to join the celebration. But when they got back to the palace, Alistair and his mother were waiting, and they had a big reveal. They said that Johnny was born after William and Doy's marriage had been officially ended, which meant that under the law, Johnny was seen as a child born outside of marriage. He could not legally become the Duke. The news hit William and Johnny hard, but Johnny, even through the pain, told himself that at least he had gotten the chance to know his father. He had no reason to stay, so he decided to leave. Prudence begged him to stay. Johnny told her gently that he had never really belonged there, and walked away. Johnny went straight to the bar. His friends had already heard the news, and every single one of them refused to go to the royal event without him. Back at the palace, Annie and the rest of the staff felt the same way. They chose not to go either, to stand by Johnny. Back in her office, Prudence sat looking at Johnny's birth record again. Then, something small caught her eye, a detail she had missed before. The moment she understood what it meant, she ran. She found Johnny and told him he had to come to the dance. Just for her. Right before the event began, William was welcoming his guests. Then he stopped completely. Doy was walking through the door. He could not hide how happy he was, and brought her inside straight away to introduce her to everyone. A little while later, Johnny arrived with Prudence and his friends. Alistair and his mother watched with barely hidden anger, unable to understand why regular people had been brought into a royal event. Then, in the middle of the crowd, Johnny spotted his mom. He had no idea she was coming. He was completely taken by surprise. William stepped forward and spoke from the heart in front of all his guests. In just 1 week, my whole life has changed. Because of my son, old memories came back to me, and now I feel like I can get back the life I lost so many years ago. Then he told the room that Johnny would be his next heir. Alistair jumped up immediately. He was born outside of marriage, but Prudence stepped forward and told everyone the truth. The signature on the papers that had ended William and Doy's marriage, the papers that made Johnny look like he had no legal right to the title, was fake. It could be proven by comparing it to William's real signature. William writes with his left hand, and the way he signs his name is so unique, it is nearly impossible to copy. Alistair panicked, stumbling over his words. William turned to him with a firm voice. "Get out." A moment later, Johnny stepped forward and hugged his father tight. Then he shared his plans. He wanted to start a juice company, working together with the farmers who had been on that land for generations. And at the end of the night, Johnny pulled Prudence onto the dance floor. The other guests joined in one by one. The whole room filled with laughter and happiness. After the dance, Johnny took Prudence out to the garden. He told her honestly that he loved her. Prudence smiled and kissed him. Our hero became the Duke and got the girl too. And with that, the movie comes to a close. Hope you liked the recap. If you made it to the end, don't forget to leave a like and drop a comment. And if you're watching for the first time, subscribe so you never miss a recap. See you in the next one. Peace.